23andMe will probably be studied as one of the most fascinating burnouts of a tech company that went from a $6 billion almost household name to bankruptcy and a privacy nightmare. DNA testing firm 23andMe files for bankruptcy as demand dries up. 23andMe on Sunday filed for bankruptcy in the US after struggling with weak demand for its ancestry testing kits and a 2023 data breach that damaged its reputation. This situation is kind of a wild ride, so I'm going to talk about the bankruptcy, what led to it, and what they're trying to do to fix it, even though I don't think it's actually probably going to work. The company's shares fell 50% to 88 cents on Monday trading after co-founder and whatever her last name, who failed multiple times to make takeover bids, resigned as CEO. 23andMe did not say whether there are more interested bidders. It will continue to operate during the sale process, having secured $35 million in financing over the weekend. And in the very first paragraph there, you can already see issues. A happy company that's running well and has executives that all like each other doesn't have a CEO that tries to make takeover bids. Maybe she saw it coming, or maybe she was just so prideful that she couldn't stand the thought of someone else running her company. But most likely, she was concerned about the fact that the company, in the entire time it had been open since 2005 or 2006, had never made a profit. The entire evaluation was based on hype. And as you are all probably aware, internet virality does not last. And the Wall Street Journal has a piece about this. 5 years ago, 23andMe was one of the hottest startups in the world. Millions of people were spitting in test tubes to learn about their ancestry. Oprah had named the kits one of her favorite things. Lizzo dressed up as one for Halloween. Eddie Murphy name-checked the company on Saturday Night Live. 23andMe went public in 2021, and its valuation briefly topped $6 billion. Forbes anointed Anne Wojcicki, 23andMe's chief executive officer and a Silicon Valley celebrity, as, quote, the newest self-made billionaire. Now Wojcicki's self-made billions have vanished. 23andMe's valuation has crashed 98% from its peak, and the Nasdaq has threatened to delist its sub-$1 stock. Wojcicki reduced staff by a quarter last year through 3 rounds of layoffs and a subsidiary sale. The company has never made a profit and is burning cash so quickly it could run out by 2025. And guess what happened? Through articles like this, you can start to get an idea of what went down. Basically, the company grew faster than it knew how to handle. And the entire time, the company knew that if they didn't figure out a way to make a consistent and recurring revenue, that they were going to go under. And Reuters actually talks about this general failure to create consistent and recurring revenue. 23andMe garnered lots of attention from investors when it was first taken public via a special purpose acquisition vehicle, a SPAC, run by billionaire Richard Branson at $3.5 billion valuation in 2021. Its market value peaked later that year at nearly $6 billion due to booming interest in DNA testing kits, but demand has waned since, hurting 23andMe and its Blackstone-owned rival Ancestry DNA. Sales of the consumer kits frequently picked up during the holiday season, but 23andMe has struggled to retain consumers mainly because people would use the kits once and then see little reason to order another one. Bernstein analysts have said that the market for ancestry kits might be close to tapped out. Now, there are other issues like data breaches and privacy concerns, but at its core, this was the issue, is that customers would purchase the ancestry kit once, get all the results, do the DNA thing, tell their friends about it, and then that was kind of it. They didn't have any kind of a recurring revenue stream. There was no need for the customers to come back to purchase again after having purchased just once. If you go to a website like Adobe, I think they're the most infamous user of subscription services, every single product here is a subscription-based service. Everything is some amount of money per month. It's no longer a pay for it once and own it forever type thing. Otherwise, people would pay for it just once, and then they would have the Adobe software forever, and then Adobe, the company, makes less and less money because people who bought it kept it, and there aren't that many new people entering the video editing market. 23andMe hit an issue where they had been around long enough to where everyone that wanted a DNA kit pretty much had bought and used one. And after that, you kind of have to ask yourself, well, then what? You're out of business. You have nothing more to offer that customers want. There's no continuous usage. It's more of a novelty. There's no consumable aspect that you keep purchasing, like, I don't know, a bag of Oreos. And it's also not something that you can necessarily approve upon year to year, like you would say new cars and have people that like cars and enjoy cars and coming in and taking out large debts to pay for cars. And it's not even really a software as a service adjacent thing where you can just keep charging over and over month to month. Basically, all normal paths for a company to make money, whether they're selling something physical or virtual, kind of don't exist for the DNA testing kit industry. And it's not even just that the consumer base kind of doesn't exist and more realistically runs out as the company exists, but bad publicity from data breaches and news articles also made people wary about even giving their genetic information over to a company in the first place when the company might just straight up sell it. This is from the Wikipedia page. In October of 2023, Wired reported that a sample of data points from 23andMe's accounts were exposed on breach forums, a black hat hacking crime forum. 23andMe confirmed to TechCrunch that because of an opt-in feature that allows DNA-related relatives to contact each other, the true number of people exposed was 6.9 million, nearly half of 23andMe's 14 million reported customers. One batch of data was advertised on a hacking forum as a list of something Jews and another as a list of people of Chinese descent, sparking concerns about targeted attacks. And you can imagine how bad it looks on a company to have half of all of your entire customer base's personal DNA and also like contact information data just stolen. And then it looks even worse when the company that did that then responds to backlash and lawsuits by trying to force everyone that uses their service to waive their right to a lawsuit and liability. This is from Ars Technica. Shortly after the 23andMe confirmed that hackers stole ancestry data of 6.9 million users, 23andMe has updated its terms of service, seemingly cutting off a path previously granted to users to seek public accountability when resolving disputes. According to a post on Hacker News, the 23andMe team notified users in an email that, quote, important updates were being made to the dispute resolution and arbitration section of 23andMe's terms of service on November 30th. This was done, 23andMe told users, to include procedures that will encourage a prompt resolution of any disputes and to streamline the arbitration process proceedings where multiple similar claims are filed. In the email, 23andMe told users that they had 30 days to notify the ancestry site that they disagreed with the new terms. Otherwise, 23andMe users will be deemed to have agreed to the new terms. The process for opting out is detailed in the site's terms of service, instructing users to send written notice of their decision to opt out in an email to arbitrationoptout@23andme.com. So basically, to continue to use the service, you had to agree to arbitration on their terms and waive any right you had to sue them should something like this ever happen again, which is a terrible look, to be clear, and it led people to completely distrust this company. And this is especially bad for a company like 23andMe because this is a frivolous product. No one needs to have an ancestry DNA kit, and therefore it's pretty easy to choose not to buy it. It's not like a cell phone company or a car company where you need a cell phone or a car to survive. With this, you can just kind of not do it, and that's really okay. The company was basically saying that we might expose personal and genetic information about you now or again in the future, and you are no longer allowed to do anything about it. So you've got a company that can only sell to each customer potentially once, but then you've got a lot of those potential customers avoiding the company because of data breaches and publicity. So the solution that 23andMe came up with was to try and milk the customers that they had with these new shiny subscription services that they started rolling out. A little while ago, I think around a year or so, 23andMe rolled out this. Which service will you start today? Remember, you can always upgrade without having to spit again, where they rolled out for the first time 23andMe Plus, a premium service that you can pay $70 a year for. And with this, you get stuff. Honestly, I've never really read through it because I really haven't cared that much. But this went over about as well as you'd imagine. Let's look at the 5 years here. Yeah, people were not particularly interested in paying a subscription service for a one-time novelty product that had already leaked all of their data once, and also, nobody really cares about the company anymore. There are no real tangible benefits to accessing DNA and genetic information as a subscription service over and over, especially after once you pay for it once, you get the kind of, oh, that's cool, that's interesting, and then you move on with your life. So 23andMe was unable to make recurring revenue. They had taken on too much debt. Their operation in general was too expensive to run. So the last chance they had was to reorganize their company and their debts through a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. With the idea being that after a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, they could operate on a smaller scale and then slowly build back up to a large profitable company. And this, as you can imagine, almost immediately backfired. You've probably seen articles like this absolutely everywhere. 23andMe just filed for bankruptcy. You should delete your data now. 23andMe, maker of popular DNA test kits, announced Sunday that it has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and is looking for a buyer. Although the company has promised to continue protecting consumer data amidst a possible sale, California's Attorney General has advised 23andMe users to consider deleting their information. And this has become a privacy and PR nightmare because anyone who buys the company owns all of the consumer genetic and personal information, and there is no law guiding what that company can then do with that personal and genetic information. Imagine that an insurance company buys buys it, and it uses the DNA information there to jack up the health insurance prices of individual people that it finds out has some kind of a genetic predisposition or is more likely to contract like cancer. Or imagine an AI company buys it and then uses your genes and genetic information to make tons of money through medical research. The important thing here is that you no longer have control over anything, and the most personal aspects of you and your DNA are being sold to the highest bidder. So please go on here, read this article, and delete your data. 23andMe is an interesting case because it was like a flash in the pan that had the attention of the entire nation, and then it did absolutely nothing with that. They had a perfect opportunity to spin off into like ancestry mapping or healthcare or pharmaceuticals or something else, and they just didn't.